Anyway, back to Dave. Brat, so Dave, inflation is going to be the whole thing. Quantitative easing doesn't help prices go down, puts more money in the hands of people, drives up prices. Same with the $2,000 rebate from the tariffs. What do you see there?
Yeah, no, that's right. We're walking a tightrope, and Trump doesn't have time to do it all. But the one area I just keep coming back to. I got a phone call last night from Dave Barton down in Dallas. But the one thing that's not a sexy topic, but inflation and all these things, they matter. But the thing that really matters is productivity. That's the most important thing in the economy. And when you've got K-12 kids that have been taught all this woke stuff and haven't been taught technical skills, right? I hear the ads on TV, the big businesses, they want H-1B visas. By the way, 71% of the H-1B visas come from India, only 12% from China. That's what that study showed. So that was kind of a eye shocker to some people. And, of course, everyone would love to have cheap labor as a business. But the one thing we're not doing is training our kids in. We're just acting like they just get to take anything in high school where they're not being trained in professionally at all, right? They're not learning how to code in computers or learning about all these new innovations in money and currency, and they're not learning any business or economics. And then they go to college and study, creative grievance studies. I have a grievance at this group this week. And then they become more bitter at the country and more bitter at business. And then they want a free ride. And they want business to pay for the free ride. And so if we don't end that, right, the third grade literacy rate in Chicago for the poor kids is 12%. That's Illinois Public Policy Institute. 12% of the kids, poor kids in Chicago, can read. Right? And so, if you say you care, the liberals used to care about the kids, right? The liberals are gone. Now we got all these crazies and people acting like they're the old liberals and saying I'm a moderate, and they're not moderates at all. And so, if I was king for the day, I would change our education policy drastically, and just changing the attitude, right? Hiring some great leaders in as these principals. I've been to a few of the inner city schools where they got some sports guy in there as the principal and the leader, and they got the cops coming in, shaking the kids' hands in the morning, and the firemen and the first responders, and they got a little sports motif stuff. They do a little Wall Street business trading stuff, and they change the psychology, and every one of their kids goes to college and becomes a success story. It's not hard to do. You just got to give the kid a better story than what they're getting now, and that's not hard to do. So that's my fundamental. That's 1/3 of economic growth, by the way, right? Capital is 1/3. Human capital, education is 1/3, and technological growth, which is artificial intelligence and all this stuff, is another third. And so that's the big piece we're missing.
So you say 1/3 is hard capital. 1/3 is human capital, and 1/3 is
right. Technological change, and we're number one in the world on that, right? We got all the research triangles in Silicon Valley. We're great, but the problem there is all the wealth from that sector goes to the top 10%, to the rich.
Right. So the 1/3, 1/3 model, you say, what would you call that?
Well, I did my PhD on cross-country economic growth, and so Solow won the Nobel Prize for that work, and then Mankiw at Harvard, if people want to look him up, Mankiw, he had the most beautiful paper that just worked out. It's kind of like he matched the data, cross-country data, right, from 100 countries almost perfectly with a model that said, right, and he controlled for everything else under the sun. Right, so people say, well, Dave, there's a lot of other things that cause economic growth. But really, if you put in the regressions, all those other things, but you put in capital, human capital, and tech, those three told the story 20 years ago, and they still tell the story. And like the World Bank, I worked at the World Bank, and they say we got to focus on sixth grade girls' education. That's got the highest rate of return. And that's great. But if you don't do the others with it, who's going to hire the sixth grade girls for that high rate of return in education? Right? And so you've got to first get the machine running, the economy running. But that's the state-of-the-art economics out there. It's called the growth literature, if your kids want to look it up.
Got it. All right. Listen, I think that's where we have to go. But if we don't get, let's get to the midterm of the elections, right? All anybody is talking about, all the Democrats want to talk about is prices. Of course, when Biden was there and inflation was 20%, they never wanted to talk about it. Now that's all they talk about.
Right.
And even if prices come down, like they have been, they're going to keep saying they're not.
Yeah.
The problem is you go to the store, it's very expensive for some of the things you buy. So that's just reality. So how do we navigate our way through that going into the elections?
Well, you're right. It's prices, and they have to come out and explain what they were left with. You can't change that in a year. And then, of course, the other one, the Democrats always run on you, is health care. And health care will bankrupt us unless we find a way to limit the high-end cases, right, where you're paying, $10 million per patient, and there's no limit on that. Of course, as a country, you cannot do that. So the Republicans always come in with some kind of innovation to try to help a little bit, and then the Democrats say you're killing people.
Right.
And so we need a healthcare policy fix that's really good, right? And if you get down to a debate on pre-existing conditions and those nasty Republicans won't cover them and the Democrats will, a lot of people will vote on that alone without understanding we have a Social Security and Medicare crisis on our hands, and the next generation is not going to get, right? I think in 7 years they're both bankrupt, which means the funding immediately goes down to about 75% levels, and then it goes down every year after that. And so that's a real, the clock is ticking, and that's why the young people are ticked off. They can't afford a house till they're 40 now, the data show. The major retirement systems are in jeopardy, and the rich people in the suburbs, the yuppies that are doing the wine and cheese things, are still voting Democrat like everything's free because their lifestyle is still fine, and they don't really seem to care about the country. And until we convince them that, hey, right, if you look at you and me, 10 years ago we were saying stuff, people thought we were crazy.
Right.
Now it all happened. It all happened. Everything we said, the European, the globalists, the green scam, now was a green scam. You got Bill Gates saying, all right, we were kind of wrong on the green scam. Now we need a lot of energy for the artificial intelligence scam so we can kill you all that way. I'm exaggerating a bit, but then you get the humor.
Dave Brat, I want to thank you for your insight here. I'll call you later. Got something else to go over with you. Need your help on. My love to Lauren and your fam, and we'll see it next week. But I will call you this afternoon. You can follow Dave Brat at go to Getter Brat Economics. Getter Brat Economics. It's all there. Dave, thanks for being with us today.
All right. Love you, brother. Love you, folks.
Bye, Dave.